recording. Okay, so Teamwork Tuesday. It's on a Monday. Blah blah blah. Don't tell everyone who's online. We've done that joke before. Today we're going to be talking about discipline, which is a challenging aspect of leadership. This will be pretty quick. Okay, here's a problem. Lots of people want to sit around and say, I'm a nice person, I lead with love, love, kindness, compassion, acceptance, all of that. And they are very important principles to follow, and people who don't think like that are usually a-holes in some way. But here's the problem. It's like, it's very easy. It's very, very easy to think that you can solve most problems by just being like really happy and like appeasing people when you're dealing with simple situations. And the tragedy is a lot of situations in our life, particularly when we're young, are pretty simple. In terms of like the people that you're responsible for are pretty minimal. And here's the problem. Leadership of any sort, right? And this is in the workplace, in social environments, in familial environments, usually comes with it a sense of responsibility, right? Like if you're a leader in some sense, you are responsible for the well-being of lots of people under you. So this complicates life a little bit because at first you think, oh, well, again, there's no reason to ever be mad. There's no reason to ever like have to discipline anyone. There's no reason to ever have to like speak to anyone and be like, you aren't doing good enough. This needs to be better, right? No one likes having those conversations. But the thing is, they're unavoidable because when you're in a position of responsibility, again, you could relate this from everything from running a large organization to like, having two younger siblings that you're responsible for. Here's what happens. You have one of the younger siblings or someone in your workplace, and one of them just starts abusing each other, right? For some reason, maybe they're hitting them, maybe they're calling them names, and you kind of have a choice here. Do you try and just be all like, everything's fine, we'll do what we can, and just like be talk to the person who's like being a bit of a douchebag and just be like, oh, it'd be awesome if like we could just all be happy and stuff, because like sometimes that's not going to work, right? Like just throwing like a general positivity at things does not always solve the problem. And you can't get away from this, because if you ignore that, if you think, I don't want to be too harsh in this situation, I don't want to come across too mean or too challenging or confrontational, you're essentially saying to the person who's like a victim in this scenario that you don't care about them, right? Because in these situations, there is no way to get out of them without causing harm to someone, either through an action or a lack of action, right? It's a pretty straightforward process. I'll give you a very simple way that this has come up for me in solar car land, right? In solar car land, I'd have a mechanical team of like 15 people and an electrical team of 10 people, right? And this mechanical team, they would be working all weekend, like during the day, in the evening, skipping time with family, skipping time with loved ones, working as hard as they can to get the car ready for an event on Monday. And then I'd have the electrical team who just aren't doing anything. They're just like, they're lazy, or they just don't care and they're not motivated. And when we turn up on Monday after all of that and we take the car out onto the road, the car doesn't turn on, right? And the problem is that you can't really just be positive in that situation, because you've got a whole bunch of people, right? In this case, like mechanical engineers, who are essentially had their work, their time, their sacrifice invalidated by another group of people that you're responsible for, which are like your electrical engineers in this case. I'm not speaking broadly about mechanical engineers or electrical engineers. This is just one particular scenario. So like you have a job, which is either you can just like tell everyone, oh, we'll just try better next time, and everyone will think you're terrible, or you can actually sit down and talk to the electrical engineers and have a hard conversation about the fact that people you're responsible for, are hurting other people you're responsible for, right? Responsibility is this terrible eye-opener that like life is not straightforward. Like you think you have a policy of never hurting anyone until you have to like force your child to get a needle while they cry for like some kind of vaccine, right? and you're like, this is a good thing to do, and you just have to make sure that you're ethical and you're balanced about these things. So anyway, that's the problem at hand. That's the problem, is like, you're going to come across situations when you have positions of responsibility where you have to have hard conversations, and you have to have dialogue about the harsh truths with people. Now the real question is, how do you bring people up, right? Like, how do you take people from a state where they're not doing good enough, in whatever sense that is, to where they are doing good enough? And generally there's 3 ways you can do that, in my opinion. The first one, and they're all different ways to motivate people, because when I say discipline, what you really mean is having hard conversations to motivate people to be better and to do better, to treat other people you're responsible for or yourself in a more appropriate way. And that's not through hitting people, but it is through, again, like, the harsh truths, and saying, I want you to be better. Like, I want you, like, you're down here and I want you to be up here. You know, maybe you're mean, maybe you're loud, maybe you're insensitive, and I want you to stop. And there are 3 main ways you can motivate them. You can motivate them to do it for you. I'll just call it boss in this sense. That's a terrible word. Do it for their peers, or do it for themselves. And as you move through this, as you move this way, it gets harder to do this, but at the same time, it also gets more effective. The cheapest and easiest way to get something out of someone is to say, your behavior is not good enough. I want you to do better, because otherwise I'll be upset with you. I will be mad with you. I won't talk to you. I'll I will hate you, kind of thing, right? Like that kind of thinking. That's a way to get things done quickly, but it rarely sticks, because most of the time when people do things in life, they're not doing it for people in positions of power, right? Like, very rarely, are the tutors of 1531 tutoring this course because they want to make me happy. I'm sure they want to a little bit, but it's like, that's not what's motivating them. It's not like if I stop teaching this course tomorrow, they'd all quit, right? Because it's bigger than that. So doing it for you is easy, because you're right there with them. You control that entire dialogue. The second approach to this, which is a bit more effective, is obviously to motivate them to do better by the people around them, because most people want to find a sense of belonging or a sense of acceptance within their community, right? So a good example, okay, you're running a meeting, and it's a really important meeting. You've got 20 people there, but someone turns up 10 minutes late. Okay, well, what do? You can have this hard conversation with the person that's turned up late about, that's not good enough. Or you can do nothing, effectively telling the 19 people that turned up on time that you don't value their time, right? That's the decision you have. You can't, I don't know if the word pussyfoot is an offensive term these days. I don't really know what the better term is for it, if it is, but it's like the equivalent of just dancing around it. You can't just run away from it. And so, you talk to that person. First thing is I don't want you to do that again. I'm going to be so freaking mad with you if you turn up late again. Okay, simple, easy. The better one, do you value, help me understand, because I don't feel like you value the time of your peers, right? There were 19 people here for 10 minutes. That's 3 hours of people's lives that were just spent sitting around. I hope that means something to you, right? I mean, that sounds passive aggressive a little bit, granted, but it's motivate them to care about their peers. Who cares? They don't care if you're mad at them. That's not a sustainable approach to motivating someone, particularly adults. So you motivate them to do it for their peers. And then the best way, which is the hardest way, because it usually involves a relationship with the person, and a precondition is, that they already trust you and there's some kind of honest dialogue, is encouraging them to do better for themselves, right? So if you're really trying to get the most out of someone, you have to sit down and have to be is this the person you want to be? Is when you talk to them, when I started working with you, this was the impression I got. This was the impression of what you wanted to get out of this. This is the impression of the type of person you wanted to become at the end of it. Do you still want to be that person? Do you still want to do that thing? Do you still want to learn that and rise to those occasions, right? And they're the most intrinsic and powerful forms of motivations, because fundamentally, people do things for themselves, right? It's not weird. And if they're not doing it for themselves, they'll tend to do it for their group. And if they're not doing it for their group, they'll tend to do it for their authority. So, where does the "you're fired if you don't work harder"? I mean, that one's a bit complicated, I think, because like if you're getting to the point where you're talking about terminating someone, it's probably more a business decision. That they're like a lot of this stuff is about like there are problems arising, right? Like not like someone is like not like Sally's going to the drinking fountain and just like literally bashing Bob with a brick over the head every time there's a lunch break or something. Like we're beyond this point for all of this. This is more like problems, right? Like your standard politics stuff, your standard just like social disturbances. You're fired if you don't work harder, though, could possibly fall in the do it for you thing, but like it's like do it for the authority. But that gets tricky because like people don't want to lose their job for a whole range of reasons. It's probably to do with things well beyond their professional ambitions. Like feeding people. So this is before that point. Anyway, if nothing else, things to take away. Having complex responsibility will teach you that a lot of resolutions are between unpleasant and more unpleasant outcomes. You can't dance around having hard conversations with people that might make people dislike you. And number two, just think about this, which is that in general, you'll always lunge towards like trying to make people do better for you. That's just a pretty natural reaction because you're the one who's hurt by the behavior, or you're the one who's felt it. But where you can, do your best without being passive aggressive again to try and talk to people and help them figure out what they can be, or like how they can fit in. Because a lot of the time when people make mistakes, it's because they're struggling. It's not because they're a-holes. Maybe they're struggling with the language, maybe they're struggling with a workload, maybe they're struggling with the environment, maybe they're dealing with family issues at home. And most of the time talking about it gets you most of the way there. So you can't run away from it. That's the short answer. Yeah. I mean, do it for your peers. Like a classic one with that is like, every time you don't work, like your colleagues have to work overtime. Like that's like a classic thing, right? Like why do you keep calling in sick? Like it has an effect on other people. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here. It's 1:55. We're on time today, which is exciting. So thank you for your Teamwork Tuesday patience. Let me send out a poll for this one too. And I will see you all tomorrow, where we'll be talking a little bit about SDLC design and then some fun Git knowledge. So yeah, have a great day, everyone. Enjoy your afternoon, and I'll see you tomorrow.